It was the middle of the night when Emily awoke in a cold sweat, her heart pounding against her chest. The same dream had haunted her for weeks, flashes of her life unraveling before her eyes, the weight of choices made in secret suffocating her. But tonight felt different. Tonight, the dream wasn't just a dream. It was a warning. The walls were closing in, and she knew it was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down. Emily worked as a projects manager at a high-stakes tech firm. Her job was demanding, intense, and relentless. Every day felt like a race against time. Deadlines loomed over her. Clients demanded perfection, and the pressure to succeed mounted with each passing moment. She was one of the few women in her position, constantly proving herself in a male-dominated field. To make it worse, she wasn't just climbing the corporate ladder, she was practically sprinting up it. Her husband, Jack, tried to be supportive, but their marriage was strained. They had been together for 7 years, but lately, it felt like they were living separate lives. Jack was a teacher, his days filled with simplicity and routine. He couldn't understand the immense pressure Emily faced daily. Their conversations had dwindled to surface-level exchanges, and when they were together, there was always an invisible wall between them, one built from exhaustion and unspoken feelings. It was during one of her more stressful days at work that Emily met Mark. He was a senior executive in the company, her mentor, and someone who seemed to understand the weight she carried. He had been through the same struggles, worked under the same pressure, and had a reputation for steering people through rough waters. He was calm, collected, and charismatic, a stark contrast to Emily's fraying nerves. Mark quickly became her confidant. In meetings, they exchanged glances that said more than words ever could. Late-night strategy sessions turned into personal conversations. Emily found herself confiding in him more than she did with Jack. He was a safe place, a reprieve from the constant strain of her life. And slowly, almost without realizing it, she began to feel something more. The affair started innocently enough. Emily wasn't the type to cheat. At least, that's what she told herself. But Mark was different. He made her feel seen, understood, and appreciated in a way Jack no longer did. At first, it was just a few shared dinners after late work nights, long conversations about life and career that veered into personal territories. But as time went on, their connection deepened. One evening, after a particularly grueling presentation, they found themselves alone in Mark's office. The room was dimly lit, and the tension between them was palpable. Emily had never intended for things to go this far, but when Mark reached out and touched her hand, she didn't pull away. His touch was comforting, familiar. She felt the weight of her world slip away in that moment, replaced by the exhilarating thrill of something new and forbidden. That night, their emotional affair crossed an invisible line. They didn't kiss, they didn't touch again after that brief moment, but the betrayal had begun. The guilt gnawed at her, but she convinced herself it wasn't an affair, not yet. It wasn't physical, it was just emotional, just a connection. But deep down, Emily knew it was a betrayal all the same. Weeks passed, and the tension in Emily's life only intensified. She was balancing on a knife's edge, juggling her growing feelings for Mark and her guilt over distancing herself from Jack. At home, Jack had started noticing changes. Emily was more distracted, more secretive, her phone always within reach, and she often worked late into the night. He chalked it up to her high-pressure job, but doubt had crept into his mind. One evening, Jack decided to confront her, though he wasn't entirely sure what he was confronting her about. "Emily, is something going on with you? You've been different lately." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She could feel the truth clawing at her throat, but she wasn't ready to let it out. "It's just work, Jack. It's been crazy, and I'm under a lot of stress." Jack looked at her, his eyes searching for the truth. "Are you sure that's all it is?" She smiled, but it was forced. "Of course," Jack nodded, but the tension between them remained thick, and as Emily walked away, she knew she couldn't keep this up much longer. The lies were suffocating her. Then, one day, everything changed. Emily was in her office when she received an unexpected email. It was from a colleague, someone who had noticed the increasing closeness between her and Mark. The subject line read, "Is there something going on between you and Mark?" Panic shot through Emily's body as she read the email. There were rumors circulating about her and Mark. People had started talking. Emily's affair was no longer a secret, kept within the safety of her mind. It was out there, in the open, and soon it would reach Jack. Desperate, Emily called Mark. "We need to talk," she whispered into the phone. They met in a secluded cafe after work, both of them on edge. "We can't let this get out," Emily said, her voice trembling. "If Jack finds out, if the company finds out, it'll ruin everything." Mark, always calm under pressure, took her hand. "We'll figure it out. I won't let this destroy your career, Emily. But you need to decide what you want." Emily stared at him, her heart pounding. She didn't know what she wanted anymore. Mark made her feel alive, but Jack was her husband. She was trapped between two worlds, and no matter what she chose, someone would get hurt. That night, Emily returned home to find Jack waiting for her, his face pale and drawn. He had received a call from one of Emily's coworkers. The rumors had reached him. "Emily," Jack began, his voice barely above a whisper, "is it true? Are you having an affair?" Time seemed to freeze. Emily stood in the doorway, her entire body trembling. She had known this moment was coming, but now that it was here, she didn't know what to say. The truth was there, hanging between them, but speaking it aloud would make it real. It would destroy them. I never meant for it to happen," she finally whispered. "It wasn't physical. It was just emotional." Jack's face contorted with pain. "You don't think that's worse? That you gave your heart to someone else?" Tears streamed down Emily's face as she tried to explain. "I've been so lost, Jack. The pressure at work, everything, it's been too much. Mark. He understood me, but I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt you." Jack's voice cracked with anger and betrayal. "You didn't want to hurt me, but you did." Emily thought this was the end, that their marriage would crumble under the weight of her mistakes. But Jack, though devastated, surprised her. Instead of leaving, he proposed something she never expected: therapy. He didn't want to walk away without understanding how they had ended up here. He wasn't ready to let go of the life they had built together, even if it was hanging by a thread. "I don't know if we can fix this," Jack admitted, his voice heavy with sadness. "But I need to know if we can try." Emily, overwhelmed with guilt and sorrow, agreed. It wasn't the clean break she had imagined, but maybe that was the twist she needed. Instead of running to Mark, instead of letting the affair define her future, she chose to fight for what she had nearly lost. Emily and Jack's journey wasn't easy. Therapy dredged up painful truths about the distance that had grown between them, about Emily's feelings of inadequacy, and Jack's own shortcomings. They learned that their marriage had been cracking long before Mark came into the picture. The affair was a symptom, not the disease. Mark, realizing that Emily had chosen her marriage, stepped back. He respected her decision, though it left a bittersweet taste in his mouth. He wasn't the villain in the story, just another flawed person trying to navigate his own loneliness. In the end, Emily and Jack didn't find a fairy tale resolution, but they did find a way forward, one built on honesty, painful as it was. They knew there would always be scars, but they also knew that scars meant healing was possible. And that, Emily realized, was all they could hope for.